Hey guys, my name is Sergey Gusev. Welcome to my channel. Today I continue talking about portraits and I'm going to show how to draw a portrait on paper with graphite pencil. So let's get started. But I would like to divide my lesson into three big parts, three steps, to make the entire process more simple for you. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step instruction. The first step I call a construction sketch. The second step is shading, and the last one I call working on details. So, the first step is basically a sketch, and when I sketch, I care mostly for the composition and proportions. By composition, I mean the right place of the head on paper. I would say the biggest mistake is when beginners make the head too big or too small. So let's say if you have a canvas of paper 16 by 20 inches, I would recommend to make the head really close to the size of your hand. So not bigger for sure. Otherwise, it's gonna look bigger than the life size. So don't make it bigger, but from the other hand, don't make it smaller, because if you have a lot of space around, the head is gonna drown. I mean, it's gonna look really tiny and really weird. So remember that it shouldn't be bigger than the life size, but from the other hand, not much smaller. Then I would recommend to care a lot for the proportions. So when you start, just always measure and always compare what you draw with the original proportions. Otherwise, you can make a lot of mistakes and then it's going to be really difficult to correct them. So don't draw a lot of details in the beginning. Don't draw any eyelashes, lips, no hair, and so on. Just remember to draw mostly with a few lines, like I do right now. So you see, I have no details, almost no details, and I have only big shapes, big silhouettes, big forms, and only after that I start working a little bit on the details when I feel I'm ready for that. So remember to always measure the big proportions. For example, compare the forehead, how high it is, with the height of the face. I mean, don't make the forehead too tall or too low. Don't make it too wide, for example, or too narrow. The same with the face. The same with the nose. Don't make the nose too long or too wide. Just keep in mind to always check it. Even when you start shading and even when you finish your drawing, just remember to go back and check the main proportions and then the proportions of the details. But in the beginning, I highly recommend you to care mostly for the big proportions and big silhouettes. Don't think a lot about the details. You will have enough time to work on them. And when you're almost done with the proportions and with the composition, it's time to begin the second step, which I call shading. What do I mean by shading? I mean work on the values. So right now you can see that I begin to shade in the darkest spots. And then I continue and start working on the semitones. I also start from the darkest semitones because it's always much easier to work from the darkest spots, and only after that start working on the lights. And right now I'm working on the shadows. When you start shading, you have to remember about the light source. It's very important, and a lot of beginners forget or they don't know. And so I tell you, just remember, just always keep in mind that there is a light source, and um, it's really important to understand where the light comes from. So usually it comes from above, and um, the darkest spot, the darkest shadows are going to be um, in the eye sockets because the eye sockets are really close to the light source. And the strongest contrast is in the eye sockets because they're really close to the light source. When, um, let's say, when we are drawing the chin or the cheeks, the light isn't so strong, and the tone isn't so light. It's much darker because there is no um, light down there. So the strongest light will be on the forehead and on the tip of the nose. Then when the light goes down, the tone gets darker. So the side planes of the head, the cheeks, the chin, the neck, the ear, they are all going to be much darker than the forehead. And here is my big suggestion. Just remember to always compare the lights with the shadows and the shadows with the darker shadows. So let's say when you are drawing the eye sockets, just remember to compare the shadows in the eye sockets with the shadows in the nostrils, for example, or with the shadows under the chin, and you will see which shadows are darker, which shadows are lighter, because it's a big mistake to make all the shadows um, simply dark or simply black. They're all different. They're not the same dark. So just remember to always compare. On the first step, we have to compare the proportions, and when we shade, we have to compare the values. So which ones are darker, which ones are lighter, and this is the way to make your drawing look realistic. And right now you can see that I'm working on the shadows, on the dark semitones, and I'm not working on the lights. This is the last part of this step. So just begin from the darkest spots. It's much easier. Um, guys, I would recommend you to understand this. It is much better to find one or two the most darkest spots of the head. Usually, the pupils of the eyes are the darkest. So let's say they're the darkest spots, and then we can compare the other shadows with the pupils of the eyes. So let's say the pupils are pure black, and the other shadows are light, much lighter, usually. So just quickly look at the pupils and then compare the shadow you're working on with the pupils, and you will see that the pupils are almost black, and the shadows, for example, in the eye sockets, they're not so dark, they're much lighter. And then you can compare the shadow under the nose or under the chin with the pupils, and you will see that they're even lighter, usually. So this is the way to make your drawing look really well done and realistic. Then when you start working on the semitones, you have to compare them with each other and also with the shadows. So you'll see that the semitones even the darkest semitones are much lighter than the darkest shadows, or just any shadows. Um, so if you keep in mind, then you have that you have to compare the values, you won't make a lot of mistakes. Or if you make any mistake, you will correct them right away. And right now you can see that I'm working on the shadows and I'm working on the details a little bit, but still I don't spend a lot of time on the details because uh, we're going to spend a lot of time uh, when the last step comes. And the last step I call working on the details, and we're gonna work on the details a lot and draw every detail really well and care for the construction, values, and so on. And by the way, don't forget to smooth the strokes out to make the skin values softer. So that is what I'm working on now. Also remember to darken the background down because it's much easier to see the light of the head when you have the when you have dark backgrounds, because when the background is white or very light and the lights on the face are very light, it's really difficult to see them. It's really difficult to see the the light semitones. Okay, guys, and right now um, it's time to talk about the last step, and I mentioned I call it work on the details, and right now I'm going to work a lot on the details. Before you start working on the last step and draw every detail, I would highly suggest to check the proportions, and if you see any mistake, please fix it right away. But let's say you have no mistakes and we can continue. And right now we're going to work on the details and make them look realistic and well done and so on. And um, when you start working on the details and uh, when you start working, for example, on the eyes, uh, like I'm doing right now, I highly recommend you to read or to draw, or anyways, to make sure you understand what you draw. Usually I tell my students to make smaller sketches, constructional sketches or just smaller drawings or even longer studies, or draw something from the old masters just to understand what you draw. Because if you don't understand how the eye looks and how it works, uh, I'm sure, unfortunately, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And, well, I think it's a little bit difficult to draw if you don't understand the construction. And I think it's really, really difficult to copy something if you don't understand how it works. I mean, if you don't understand what you draw and you think you will just carefully copy what you see, unfortunately, it's, in my opinion, the wrong way to learn how to draw, to learn how to paint. And it's much better to spend time and make sure you understand what you draw, what you paint, and then you will apply this knowledge every time you have to work on a portrait. So this is my basic suggestion. Just spend time and draw everything from different angles. Uh, just make quick constructional sketches. draw something from the old masters, and I guarantee you will learn a lot, you will improve a lot your skills, and you will never forget what you learned. And right now I'm working on the eyes, and I'm drawing in the shadows with a really soft graphite pencil. I believe it is a 7B graphite pencil, and um, it's really nice for the dark spots, for the really dark spots. And when I shade, I always remember about the form. So I'm not just darkening something down. I remember about the construction. I remember about the construction of the eyes, of the eye sockets, of the nose. I remember about the pupils, about the shapes of the eyes, of the eyelids, and so on. And I always recommend you to remember about the light source. So just always keep in mind that it does exist, and the light comes from above, and we can see, for example, the nose, the forehead, the ear, just because of the light source. If we turn it off, we don't see anything. So we see subjects volumetric just because of the light. And it's really, really important to understand. When you're working on the nose, remember that the shadow is less darker than, for example, in the eye sockets, because the nose is further away from the light source. So if you make everything just simply dark, it's gonna look kind of flat, not volumetric, not realistic, and falling apart. So remember about these tiny, tiny things, and you will really, really improve your skills. And right now I'm working on the ear, and when you work on the ear, I recommend you to remember that it's further away. Yes, it's on the side plane of the head, so it's not so close to us as, for example, the nose, which is much closer to us. So the ear is much softer. It's not so dark. The lights are dark, but the shadows are not so dark. There is no big contrast, like, for example, in the eyes, in the eye sockets. So when you draw the ear, just remember to make it soft, and you will notice that when you make it, soft, and you don't make it really dark in the shadows, you will see that it's going further away visually, and um, the head looks more volumetric because we see that the nose um, stands out, and the ear goes back, and the head looks kind of volumetric because of that also. So I think it's better to use harder pencils like HB or so, because we don't have to uh, shade a lot on the last step. Right now we should carefully draw every detail and always compare the lights and the shadows again, and remember about the construction of the details, and finish the drawing as much as we want and as much as we can do it. So I think that's pretty much it, and that is what I wanted to show, and um, I hope you understand that it's necessary to have a step-by-step instruction, and maybe um, the 3 steps I was talking about, it's not enough, it's not a lot. and we could divide the process into 5, 10, or even more stages, but I would like to talk about the basic things. And I think that um, those 3 steps are really important, and it's really important to remember about them. And uh, if you do remember, you won't make really big mistakes because you know what to do on the each step. Okay, I think that's it, and I hope it was kind of helpful and educative. If you like it, thumbs up, share, and subscribe to my channel because my new videos are coming out really soon, and this new tutorial is coming. I hope soon, maybe in a few weeks, because I'm still working on it. If you subscribe, you won't miss out on my new videos. And I wish you good luck, guys, with your drawings and paintings in the new year. And Happy New Year, by the way. See you soon.